If she is bad, he can't see it. She can do no wrong.
Greetings from Castle Goring from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, sorry to have to bore you with the same demi-parole, but this time I am dressed because I have to honour a commitment as soon as I finish this, and I don't have the time to change. So the last time you got me half-dressed, this time you've got me wholly dressed. Sorry about that. I really don't wish to bore you with the same demi-parole twice in a row, because it's been about 2 weeks since I wore this last, but needs must, ghastly saying, but sometimes appropriate. Josh H says, and I hope today we can have some fun. Did you see the video by the YouTuber HG Tudor, which quoted you from your interview with GB News, saying that only idiots think Harry and Meghan are in love? What do you think of his analysis of Meghan's narcissism? Based on your knowledge of Meghan's relationships and your observations of your parents' relationship, do you believe Meghan is capable of being in love with anyone but herself? Thank you for that, Josh H. I, of course, had to look at the video to see, A, if it was something that would hook me, so to speak, and B, if it hooked me, then I then needed to answer it, and it certainly hooked me. I actually don't remember when I said that only idiots think Harry and Meghan are in love. But I do agree with H.G. Tudor that Harry has capacity for love, and that Harry was genuinely in love with Meghan. And I do think that Harry has a genuine attachment to whomever he is genuinely attached to. And I know from my own personal experience, for instance, with my ex-husband, the fact that you have grown to not love someone doesn't mean that the love that you had for them just sort of disappears. It doesn't really, at least not in my case. So it causes complications, shall we say, unless you're as sensible as I was and decide, well, I better get out of this before it gets me, because I have no doubt that I would never have made 30 had I remained with my ex-husband. But to answer the question in terms of Meghan, I don't think Meghan is even in love with herself. I think Meghan is in love with the facade that she creates, and she gets a buzz out of that. But I have no doubt, having seen the way my mother and other people like her function, that on some level there is deep darkness there. There is self-loathing. They say that at the basis of every true narcissist is a very insecure individual. And I think in Meghan's case, it goes much further than insecurity. I think she is a self-hating woman of colour who wished she was white and finds herself in the opportunistic but humiliating position of having to use that part of her identity which she despises for leverage. So I think that compounds it. And I'm sure that she tells herself that she is the most wonderful and everything's right and everything. I'm fabulous, I'm this, I'm that. Deep down, the reason why she has to lie to herself and self-hypnotize herself, and may I make the point, I picked it up in both versions of my book, Meghan and Harry, the real story, that Meghan believes in self-hypnosis. She has admitted it. You can be anything you want. So I'm going to now particularize what you can be. You can be an ugly duckling who is a girl of color, and you can end up being, as via plastic surgery, orthodontia, hair straightening, skin bleaching, then skin bronzing. You can be as attractive a white woman who's posing sometimes as if she is somebody more bronzed. It's a creation. And I have no doubt she is in love with her creation. But that's not herself. She is in love with the facade. She knows that the facade is not her, but she would like it to be her. And she crams it down her and everybody else's throat that it is her. But is she capable of loving anybody else? Look at her track record. She had a good and loving relationship with her brother and sister, terminated them. She had a good and loving relationship with her father, to whom she owes practically everything. She terminated him. She had a middling relationship with her mother, but it has been expedient to embrace her mother. 2 peas, 1 pod, because both of them know how to work the system, keep their mouths shut when it suits them. Because notice, Meghan never confesses anything, or never acknowledges anything, or takes accountability for anything. So I would imagine she has learned jailhouse techniques very well. Now, I'm not saying she's been to jail, of course. No, she's never been to jail. But she certainly knows how to work the jail system to her advantage. I have a mouth like a steel trap as well, and I've never been to jail. However, it's evidently, if you can believe what certain people say, it is a jail. It's a survival technique for surviving jail. Now, although I have never been to jail, my life was certainly a prison for many years. So I suspect that's where I learned, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, speak when you need to, and when you should be speaking, open your mouth. But make sure you never violate secrets. That is a technique for getting through life. That's not love. I don't think Meghan is capable of loving anyone or anything, including herself. My reading of Meghan Markle is that she is a self-despising, very pathetic creature who has decided that she's going to coat the turd with gold leaf and hopes that everybody is going to think, oh, isn't that a beautiful piece of golden sculpture? I have a very good sense of smell. Let's leave it at that. Flexible Flyer says, if the press are so evil, then why is Harry always out there, like his late mother, looking for coverage? He's a hypocrite. He just wants the good news about him, no criticism. That's right. Diana had many virtues which Meghan lacks, some of which Harry inherited. He's good with children. He has a degree of empathy. He can be charming. He has a degree of genuine warmth, etc., etc., all of which Diana had. But Diana, like Harry, loves attention, loves drama. Now, Harry was brought up on drama. Remember, for most of Harry's life, he saw his parents to and froing in their marriage, with his mother making tremendous scenes and his father running away from them. Charles doesn't like confrontation. Charles doesn't like huge histrionic scenes. Meghan loves them. Harry loves them. Diana perfected the art of them. So there's familiarity with that. Also, Harry grew up seeing Diana complaining about how the press were hounding her. I doubt very much that Harry was ever present for Diana picking up the phone and phoning all of those journalists and tipping them off. Now, this is not me bad-mouthing Diana. There is an extensive record from a plethora of people, including Nick Coleridge, confirming that Diana was not renowned. She was infamous for tipping off the press. In his autobiography, Nicholas Coleridge actually mentions an incident, and I mentioned it in both my Diana books. I don't think Andrew Morton mentioned it in his. Wonder why. But Harry is a hypocrite, and to that extent, he has learned, he imbibed the technique with mother's milk. She wanted only nice things to be said about her, but was prepared to put up with anything as long as she got attention. So to that extent, it's Meghan. Harry loves positive attention. You know, when Harry stated that he shied away from cameras, and every time he heard the click of the shutter, it took him right back. You notice when the shutters are clicking that he wants them to be clicking with and for, he beams like Meg Ryan in When Harry Met Sally. He absolutely is. I think, though, he gets an awful lot of that. One Meg is pretty much the same as another. And on that note, I rest my case. Lorna Musial says, Lady C, why is no one talking about the Vanity Fair article part where Meghan had promised Netflix and Spotify that she knew all those people and could get them on board? Did she outright lie to Netflix? And if so, is that not breach of contract? Well, did she lie, or was she simply being over-optimistic? Because you can't give a definitive answer to that question, it is not actionable. However, going off Meghan's track record, she is adept at promising the sky and delivering hot air. So I think there's something called duper's delight, and I think Meghan delights in being a duper. But it's also, in fairness to her, a standard negotiating technique, especially in the United States of America. In the United Kingdom, people are slightly more punctilious, or used to be. It's become a much freer society in terms of standards, let me put it that way. But when I was younger, it was dishonourable to promise that which you did not know you could deliver. I think it's called BS. In fact, I think it's called Madison Avenue BS in certain circles in this country. So that might give you a clue as to the fact that there is the belief that it originated in the United States on Madison Avenue, and it is a slick salesman's technique to ensnare with hope, and then you deliver with disappointment. Sorry. The vocal crone says, I love it. I think it's a fair question as to whether Elton John has an agenda when introducing Harry to Sherborne. He's been very vindictive towards Charles, now king, because he was completely besotted by Princess Diana. Well, I don't want to be unkind about Elton John, because he's done an awful lot of good for AIDS. And I like much of what he has done and what he is about. But there is no doubt that Elton John, who is Dwight something, forget the name now, he's come very much up in the world. And I know from people close to Elton John that he is extremely impressed and was totally bedazzled by being friends with the Princess of Wales, Diana. It was a feather in his cap. It was an affirmation that he had not only arrived, but, my dear, I have arriven. Shades of Meghan. I have arriven. Well, you can understand it all. But Elton John evidently also swallows the coconut. Let's put it that way. And Diana was a very adept at playing the sympathy card to try to get people to sympathize with her, because poor Diana was such a terrible victim. She'd only been born the daughter of a viscount. Her father had only been an equerry to the Queen. She had only been born on the Saint Germain estate. She was deserving of sympathy because she was a victim of that terrible royal family. Because although she had ensnared Charles, he didn't ensnare her, she ensnared him. She knew if she played the underdog card, the victim card, it would work very well in Britain, because the British love an underdog, and even more so 25, 30, 50, 40 something years ago, because Diana was married in 1981. So that's nearly 50 years ago now, 40 something years ago. And things have moved on a little bit since then, but she knew exactly what she was doing and she did it very well. And one thing that Charles has is a long memory. And anybody who took Diana's side against him would have to watch out, because they were going to be at the back of the queue in terms of advancement, shall we say. So Elton John has gone with the Diana narrative, and he has wisely and shrewdly avoided jumping from one horse to the other, since he's still midstream. Does he have an agenda against Charles? I think I don't think he did the introduction to spite Charles at all. I think he did the introduction because he understood that it was going to advance his hat of interests, his desire for press censorship. And he also saw that he would be making brownie points with David Sherborne and with the hat of community. There is a strong element of vanity attached to the whole scenario. Rather, in my view, unsophisticated and naive vanity. But I don't think it was vindictiveness towards Charles per se, although I don't think he would have concerned himself unduly with that, because our Elton, I gather, can be pretty something else when he wants to be. Don't take my word for it. Ask John Reed. Fattoria di Bastoni says, I somehow doubt that Vanity Fair has made anything up in the 8,000 word story. They're not in the habit of being sued for their stories, especially cover stories, I would say. Quite right. In fact, Dominic Dunn ultimately lost his column on Vanity Fair because he said something about a politician that turned out to be inaccurate. He was fed misinformation, and he told me he felt he had been deliberately misled. And Graydon Carter ultimately dropped the axe on him. Vanity Fair doesn't like being involved in litigation, even peripherally, even when they're not directly involved, even when it is simply a writer of theirs who is otherwise involved. So I couldn't agree more. Vanity Fair will not have passed that aspect of this. Vanity Fair, I rephrase that, wouldn't have passed any aspect of this story that they felt was doubtful or untrue. Can you imagine, though, how jubilant they were to discover that their Megsy baby had been hawking her wares? Oh, I have a tale to tell. One tale left eye. I've had the most awful time. It's not only Diana, Princess of Wales, my beloved mother-in-law, who loved me. I'm her favourite daughter-in-law. Oh, she never made me cry, but Kate made her cry. Yes, weighty Katie made her cry. No, I'm not a bitch. You must admit I'm not a bitch. I'm just so sweet, but I can't resist speaking the truth. And I had the most awful time in that royal family. They're so racist. I've got H on tape confirming that they're racist. He didn't want to really say racist, so, I let him go with the unconscious bias rubbish, but we all know it's racism. And can you believe they forced me to do things that I can't wait to reveal to you? Do you think, really, that Archie was a great prenatal diver? Because he wasn't. There's a huge backstory to that, and I'm going to reveal it all, and I'm going to show you how racist they were, and how terrible they are, and how awful they've been to me. And all the things that I've had to endure. It's not only Diana who has said that about the effing royal family and all they've done, she did for them. I have the same story to tell, and I'm gonna tell it. I hope I make a lot of money from it. I will make a lot of money from it. But of course, in the meantime, I have to tell H. Of course, H, it's not true. Those journalists, they'll always make things up about us. Look at how they've made things up about your mother. Look at how they've said that your mother had some part to play in her death. Look at how they said it's that she didn't have on her seatbelt, and Henri Paul was drunk, and she tipped off the paparazzi, and you and I know she was murdered. I can't say the word, but you and I know it, H. We both know it. And you can say that your mom was effectively bumped off, but I don't want to say the word. I know I can't. No. Oh, H, can you get me up off the floor? I'm so... Oh, Meg, I don't know what to believe anymore. 1 minute you're this, and the next minute you're that. What can I believe? Oh, but H, you can believe everything I say, and you know how much I love you. Oh, I don't think you do that much, Meg. You haven't. Don't start with that, H. I bit my inside of my mouth. I'm sorry. That's why I've been sort of avoiding giving you all the delights that you truly love. Lollipops, of course. Lollipops. We all know. Meghan has a big supply of lollipops, and she makes sure that she avails herself of them, and she makes sure that Harry enjoys the fact that she enjoys lollipops. She has a sweet tooth. The farcicality of the whole thing is beyond belief. But my understanding is that Harry has questioned whether that is true. And Meghan has said no, it's not. How could I ever do that? I think he should ask Trevor Engelson about what Meghan can and can't do. E. Weisenbaum says, Meghan's post-divorce book deal has diminishing value in the marketplace because Meghan is such a proven liar. Not a word Meghan says or writes may be trusted. Harry is an idiot. He wouldn't know the truth if it was shouted in his ear. E. Weisenbaum, I had to read that out because your sentiments are shared by a legion of people, including me. But I will say, in fairness to Harry, when you have been bamboozled by a professional duper narcissist the way he has been, it's very befuddling. One of the features of being put through the ringer by a narcissist is befuddlement. Her father has suffered from befuddlement. I, with my mother, suffered from befuddlement. My grandmother suffered from befuddlement as a result of my mother. It is a standard feature of being caught up with a narcissist because a narcissist has no respect for the truth or for your feelings. A narcissist uses you the way and uses everything else in their life the way a sculptor uses clay, molding it. There is a degree of amorality and neutrality and disconnectedness from emotion and certainly from love or anything that one would regard as responsible behavior as they go about shaping the latest visage of themselves and the latest scenario that they're going to star in. Everybody else is basically fodder for them, to mix my metaphors. Kim Covarrubias says, as Harold said in the documentary, Meghan was better at being a royal than everyone, and Meghan piped in that it wasn't her fault, nothing ever is. I feel that they think that people hate her because she is so wonderful and not because she is a witch. Oh, there's no doubt that most, if not all, narcissists are firmly convinced that everybody is jealous of them and that everybody wishes that everybody were them, but since everybody is so inferior to them and can't be them, everybody has to be jealous of them. And this, of course, is the lie that the narcissist tells herself, or if it's a man himself, on a regular basis to maintain the presence that the narcissist regards as essential to get through life. Because basically, the narcissist knows that if they drop the mask and drop the facade, they are truly despicable. And how do they know it? Because they despise themselves. And they get enough feedback from people as their mask slips how despicable they are. What do you think has been happening on a global scale with Meghan Markle? And to a lesser extent, Harry. although she really has been the architect of much of this. And I'm not letting him off the hook. He's been a willing traveller along the journey. So don't think I'm letting him off the hook, because I'm not. But she has exposed herself. She has created, and this is a problem with narcissists, that they cannot avoid letting the mask slip. They cannot avoid giving you glimpses behind the mask. They cannot avoid letting you know that the facade is a mask. It's not the reality. But then they put on back the mask, and they're very adept, and if they're reasonably intelligent and if they have any social skills, they're very adept at using those social skills to dupe you into thinking, maybe, did I see that? But of course, because we, the public, are detached from Meghan, we can look at her and see, oh, actually, that doesn't ring true. Nobody who's into family dumps her father the way she did. And nobody who's into family tries to destroy her sister's ability to earn a living. And nobody who's into family or into even just being a decent person would get a journalist to or a pseudo writer called Amid Scabies to accidentally leak that he had been informed that the King and the next Queen of England are both racist against poor Megxy baby, of course. Want her left eye. Harry, if he admits to himself, I could see that with my father. My father couldn't or wouldn't admit to himself, oh, he knew mummy could be difficult, and oh, you know, your mother this, that, she's difficult, you know, but the enormity of it, he never acknowledged, I don't think. One of my sisters thinks he did, but he didn't want to admit it to any of us, because he would be effectively admitting that he had destroyed all our lives. I actually don't agree with her. I think he really didn't admit it. But these are the dilemmas, again, that you have in families of this nature. When you are closely involved with people like Meghan and Harry or my parents, you end up not really knowing where the truth lies or where the facts are. You think you have your opinion, I have my opinion. The opinions can differ. They can differ radically. But what is never in doubt is that people like Mummy, who used to say, she used to proudly say, I'm the biggest bitch you'll ever meet, and don't forget it. Well, does Harry think that Meghan is a witch? Evidently, not all the time. Not all the time. And so far, to the extent that even people who don't have any great interest in the matter have discovered, he doesn't yet, well, let me put it this way, his train hasn't yet arrived at that station. Oh, he knows that she's volatile and she's demanding, and that he better not cross her, and if he does, he's going to get it figuratively in the neck. He knows all of that. And the relationship, I am told, has huge ups and downs. I should say huge downs with ups, I think would be a better way of putting it. But that doesn't mean that there's not a strong connection. We need to remember that. I've said it all along. But she thinks, she has deluded herself into thinking it's because she's so wonderful. And both of them have maintained that Meghan was so much better at being a royal than all of the others. Well, with the fullness of time, that fantasy has been exposed to be the lie that it is. Meghan is not as good at being a royal as any of the others. On the contrary, Meghan has been, by her own actions, exposed to all but the few ignoramuses who can't see through her as being really a nasty piece of work. But just as how my mother always thought, everybody is just jealous of me, Meghan has that attitude as well. Everybody's just so jealous of me. I'm so wonderful. Well, anybody who's truly wonderful knows their failings. So anybody who has to tell themselves how wonderful they are means they know they're not. That's the rub with narcissists. Secretly, they know that they are enacting something that they're not. Rose Robinson says, Meghan should, instead of writing to the king, she should write to the papers and tell them she lied to scabies. Tell them Charles and Catherine are not racists. Rose Robinson, thanks for that. You are the only person in the tens of thousands of comments I have got, maybe even hundreds of thousands of comments now, in the interval between when we discovered that really Meghan is the one who is behind the lie that Charles and Catherine are racists. Neither she nor Harry has yet denied that that information is inaccurate. Neither one has denied it. So it's not only her. Harry is his father's son. He is Catherine's brother-in-law. He used to say how much he loved Catherine and how wonderful she was. All of a sudden, she became terrible because I'm not a hugger. Well, Catherine has shown she's as much a hugger as Meghan, but Catherine only hugs when it's appropriate. Meghan invades everybody's space because Meghan is a space invader. But you're absolutely right. Instead of writing to the king, setting up scenarios, if indeed she has, and I wouldn't put it past her to have done it, and it would actually be, in her scheme of things, a clever ploy. Well, just as how I went to HR so that I could accuse the royal family of not getting me help when I had ideations as a result of Harry's and my witnessing with the press in taking photographs that Archie is Tom Daly's secret son and was perfecting his diving techniques. I think you've got the message. Sue Arnett says, why was Tom Watson never sued for his appalling promotion of the deluded Carl Beech? That's a brilliant question, and thanks for asking it. To those of you who are not totally au fait with the background to this question, I'll tell you. Tom Watson was, if I remember correctly, the deputy leader for the Labour Party in the House of Commons, so he had a position of considerable influence. He's now a Lord. He promoted Carl Beech, who was seriously deluded, whose story never made sense, who was clearly malicious and vicious, if not also insane. But he can't have been insane because he's gone to prison. So he had competence, but he was gunning for various members of the Tory party. Leon Britton, Lord Britton as he became, who had been a top Tory and who was dying. Lord Bramall, who'd been the chief of staff of the army. I knew Lord Bramall somewhat. I used to do charity work and we'd cross paths at events, etc. And his wife, and Harvey Procter, who's a former Conservative MP and actually lived on the Belvoir estate, which is the Duke of Rutland's estate, and worked for David Rutland, who is the grandson of my stepmother-in-law, Margaret, Duchess of Argyll. And Harvey Procter's great friend is someone I've known since the 70s, I think, maybe 80s. But anyway, we won't go into all of that. The point I'm making is these were very respectable people whose lives were upended by Carl Beech's lies. And Tom Watson assisted him in really executing the reputations of those innocent victims by using parliamentary privilege to, for instance, name Leon Britton. Had he not used parliamentary privilege, much of the damage that was subsequently done by Carl Beech could not have been done. My opinion is that Tom Watson did it because he sensed a political advantage. And in my opinion, he violated parliamentary privilege as well as the rights of all of those people who turned out to be innocent of the accusations that Carl Beech made against them. However, because parliamentary privilege means that you can't be sued, he was able to get away with it. So I hope that answers the question. And on that note, I'd say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Thank you so much. Take good care and Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and God bless. Bye-bye.